So the more I think about the Division 2 DLC, the more I think about where are the possibilities that it can take place. And if you notice, right in front of me, it's something you might see familiar. It's the Brooklyn Bridge. The same Brooklyn Bridge you see in the roadmap for year 5 during Black Diamond. Now, this has been confirmed. This is the Brooklyn Bridge. You do see that Season 4 is bringing the story DLC. And the only time that we're actually in Brooklyn in Division 1 is at the very beginning. And if you open up the little map at the beginning of that, you can see it says Brooklyn. You see yourself. There is a mission to get to the safe house. Then you have a couple side missions. And then you remember it takes you right to the main story of the Division 1, which is you go across the Brooklyn Bridge. But what about the area where Brooklyn is and where we're going to for the Division 2 DLC? Now, the more I thought about this, the more I had to know exactly where we could actually be going. So I did a little bit more digging. And one thing I noticed about this, it was actually showcased in an E3 reveal trailer. They actually showed the Brooklyn gameplay. But what they did show at the very end is what really stood out to me. It was this map of the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge. And you can see both of them right there. You could also see where we're located, which is down here. And they actually labeled it as a dark zone. And then underneath it, there's actually other areas. But in Division 1, we never, ever come to this area again. It's the very beginning, and we stay on the left side. But if you also notice of the map on the left, what does that look like to you? Yes, it looks like Warlords of New York. So if we went over to the Warlords of New York map, you can see the Manhattan Bridge, you can see the Brooklyn Bridge, and then you can see the area that we're currently at in this Division 1 video that I'm showing you, right? And then where we're supposed to be going for the Division 2. And you look at it right here, the same thing. This is the map that they showed us for the division. So this right here could be exactly where we're going. Now, could this be assets they've had in the past and they're just going to reuse them and then I'll build on them? It could be. Now, there's something else I want to show you. It was actually from that E3 trailer, and then it lines up with what I'm about to show you right here. So if we head down, this is kind of where you start off, and it tells you to go to the safe house. And as we're pulling up on our left-hand side, you can actually see this area that looks like it's under construction. And then it says, well, there's nothing here. But in the video, it actually says the underground. Take a look at this.
Construction site here on the left.
And they say, hey, there's a construction site on the left. Exactly what I was telling you. But if you look a little closer on this one, it actually says the underground.
Come back later. We should go to the police station first.
And they say we should check this out. And then Megan says, maybe we should come back later. Now, obviously, you know, we did get an underground in the Division 1 as a DLC, but this was never used. Could this be possibly maybe a mission? That's a possibility. Obviously, it's going to be a story campaign-led DLC. We know this was one of the most iconic buildings in this portion, the police station, right? Because you go in there, you storm through there, you fight off enemies, and then obviously you take off after that. But again, this whole area wasn't really used. I think we had maybe 2 or 3 side missions. We had the main mission of the police station, and then we leave. There wasn't really much for you to do here besides those missions, because a lot of the areas, as we walk around, you'll notice they close them off, they barricade them, so you kind of get funneled into where you need to go. Again, this whole area wasn't really massive. It's definitely smaller than Warlords of New York, but in an interview with Yannick, he did say that, well, this DLC isn't going to be as big as the expansion for Warlords of New York. It is a DLC. So that gives me more clues that, hey, this kind of area might actually be the size we get. Now, could we get something a lot bigger? 100%. 100% the DLC, the map area could be bigger than what we saw here and what we're insinuated. We could even get maybe possibility a dark zone. You don't know, because the reason I do say that is because if you go back and look at that video from Division 1, they had just finished the police mission at the very beginning, you know, and when we first start, they send you there, you got to clear it. And this was a little bit different ending because obviously, but if you take a look at this, they pop a flare and it leads to show exactly where they are on the map. They post, other players show up, and this is kind of how they showcase they're going to have a PvP in Division 1. But what I want you to take a look at is when they zoom out, you see where they are on the map, and now it gives you better looking. But if you look closely, it says dark zone right next to it. So could there be a dark zone that they bring for this? Maybe. But again, that's just all speculation. We don't 100% know. What we do know is we are going back to Brooklyn. The only area that we ever saw in Brooklyn was this area right here. So maybe that's how they're going to tie it to the main campaign. We'll go back here. We'll have to do a few missions. And will we get more PvP? Who knows? We honestly don't know what they plan on bringing for the Division 2 DLC. But I just find it so cool that a lot of the answers we were looking for were right in front of us, right? We knew we were going back to Brooklyn. You barely play Brooklyn in Division 1 because it's in that portion of the map that you leave right off the bat. But that was an area that was very well developed, and I could see them really reusing a lot of the assets for this area to create missions, maybe expand upon it a little bit, and maybe give us some other modes. Who knows? But I will tell you, that has me excited. I'm excited to see where we go with the Division 2 DLC. I want to know, did any of you guys ever think of this? Did any of you guys ever go back and think that we could actually go back to this area that we had in the Division 1 that we do only once? I'm excited for the DLC. I think it's been a long time coming since we've gotten something on that size. Remember, the last big installment, anything we had was Warlords of New York. Again, as I stated, there was an interview and they did state that this won't be as big as Warlords of New York, but it will be a big size because it is a DLC. It's going to be bigger than what we've seen in the past. Now, what does that mean? How big will the area be? Will we get multiple lootable areas, multiple target farming areas? Will we get even some PvP areas in this area? We'll get a new dark zone in the Division 2. Who knows? We honestly don't know what we're going to get. What we do know is we only really have 2 more seasons before season 4, right? Season 2 is about to go live either next week or the week after. We haven't got an official date. Then we should have season 3 where we actually go back to New York. So could that be slowly building up the DLC? And then obviously season 4 when the DLC goes live. And that is when we'll be back in Brooklyn. I'm excited. I love spending time in Warlords of New York. I just feel like the environment, everything about being in New York, something about that atmosphere is just different than DC. Now, don't get me wrong. I do love the atmosphere from time to time in Washington, DC for the Division 2. But even just Warlords of New York, which doesn't have the snow, the cold, the survival aspect, it's still something eerie about it that I really enjoy being there. So being able to spend my time more on the Warlord side of things in New York, and then obviously we'll probably be in Brooklyn. Hey, I'm excited for that. I want to know in the comments, what do you guys think about this? Are you excited to go back to New York City? Excited to be back in Brooklyn? And what would you like to see from the DLC? I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey, Nothing But Skills out.